everybody. Welcome back. Erin, thank you for coming on today.
Thanks for having me.
Hopefully we don't have a lag on this podcast episode. If it does, and sorry viewers on YouTube. Okay, so today's episode is about, I think I have it labeled Guide to Buying a Fixer-Upper, and it's kind of a guide. It's just kind of like how to deal with one should you want to go down that road. But the reason why I wanted to do this episode is because it's spring market 2023. The news cycle might tell you that the housing is down. It's like depressed right now, but it's not in this area. Surprise, surprise. We have lots of competition still for what some people will say are like the good listings. And what does that mean? That means maybe a listing that's pretty much done, renovated, doesn't have a lot of problems with it. So you can walk in and this home is your own truly, and you don't have to do things unless you kind of want to. And so because you normally had fixer-uppers being purchased by developers or people who wanted to do a flip, it was hard to buy a fixer-upper. But in the last couple of years, Erin, I definitely know that you know this, cost of things have gone up. Inflation has happened, it's hit everyone, right? And so a developer will buy a house and they'll have a profit margin that they need to make in order for, a flip to make sense for them. And as that has gotten harder, there are not quite as many developers buying some of these homes. And I don't know, you can comment here. Do you think I think there's a sweet spot for a homeowner buying a fixer-upper?
If they're not going to meet a particular profit margin, then you can meet that gap by getting the enjoyment from your house. So if you know that it's going to be your full-time residence and you'd be paying that in rent or mortgage, a greater mortgage elsewhere, then it's a great opportunity to go into somewhere and build it into the home of your dreams or what you want for the right now.
Right,
But
because
yes,
you're,
it's still
yeah,
it's
yeah.
still a tough market.
Yeah, because you're going to be building equity if you renovate this house and then you stay in it, right? Versus a developer, they have to churn and burn, right? They're trying to make money and they're trying to sell more homes. That's their job. So,
Exactly.
yeah. So but why I wanted to bring you on is because you are very knowledgeable in home renovations. I've had you on as a guest before. I don't know. I think we talked about how to hire a contractor, right? Maybe a year and a half ago. But this kind of situation, it's not all HGTV. You don't really understand what happens when you're going through these renovations by watching these shows because they always end up happy, right? Someone's always there to guide you through and help you. And we just want to make sure people have a full picture. So anyway, thanks again, Erin. Maybe you can tell people kind of why you are my guest. I could tell them for you. I mean, I do sponsor a class that you do, but just so people understand where you're coming from today.
Well, I am a home renovation coach, and it started from my own home disaster experience and needing to call my dad, who was a former Class A contractor, and ask him for advice along the way, just to avoid the pink tax and understand, like, is this normal? Is this not normal? And I realized that there's a lot of people like me out there. So I've been doing this for almost 5 years now. I'm also a board certified home inspector. And so I use that to inform me when I work with general contractors, trades professionals, and homeowners, and even small businesses working on their facade improvements, to kind of holistically look at the picture of what it takes to do a renovation, which I think is really what we're going to get into today. Is not just about finding the fixer upper and seeing its potential or thinking, I have the money to do that. There's so many other steps that go into it that you want to consider to decide, do I want to buy the ready-made finished house, or do I want to embark on this journey of renovating and tackling something that really is going to require more effort than just money and desire?
Yeah. And I will do a plug here. I rarely do it, but your class is called Renovators 101. I sponsor it. We have it at my office. And the reason why I wanted to be involved is because it truly does break down everything you need to consider when going through this. And I think we even had one person in our last class who said that she might not renovate. She decided maybe I'm not going to do it. And that's the thing, is you need to go in and make a decision based on all of the facts. So, I mean, listen, I'm all for people buying a fixer-upper and doing it. I find it fun. I love going into houses that need work and helping people reimagine what needs to go in there. But yeah, so the class, like I said, is called Renovators 101. If you do catch this class, this episode early on when it's going out into the world, we have another class coming up on April 1st, right? Yeah, 9 to
Yes.
5, I believe it is. And I mean, listen, I sat in on the first class. I have a 45-minute segment, no big deal. It's amazing. Erin does a really great job. So she's a huge resource for anybody who's even thinking about this.
Thank you. And if you missed that class, I'm coming out with an online course that'll be running all throughout the year that you can hop on. But I like to offer it in the winter and in the fall when it's not really busy construction season, when I'm working most with homeowners who really need a little hand holding along the
Yeah.
way.
Yeah. Okay, so let's really quickly just tackle for people who haven't even thought about it and people are just listening to this episode. Hey, it's interesting. Like, why might somebody want to buy a fixer upper versus a renovated or a new home? Well, I mean, what do you think the number one reason is?
One, they're probably more available sometimes, less competitive than some of those. I can't tell you how many people I've met who are like, you know what, I just don't have the time in my life. And that's one of the factors to sit through the process of dealing with everything that goes into a renovation.
Yeah.
So there is a little bit less competition. So you might be competing with developers and you'll be dealing with other creative types of persons, but you can get larger square footage. You can have more original character in a home and you can build it out to be what it is that you want. So those of us who can see the potential in places actually get really excited about something that looks really awful, just absolutely terrible, because we know, oh, we're going to get to put in exactly what we want. We don't have to live in this space with how it's been handed to us or have to switch it up at a later point in time when things get dated.
Yeah, I also think the moving at your own pace thing is certainly something to consider, and we're going to get to financing at the very end because that is kind of a key component to if you are purchasing a home renovation or home flipper house. But yeah, moving at your own pace, depending on the financing, I think is great because you don't have to necessarily spend all your money at once and do
Yes.
everything. I know lots of people who say, this is a project for next year. This is a project for 3 years down the road. So that's a huge benefit in my mind. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So now we're really going to get in the meat and potatoes of this. So we're going to talk about things to consider when you're buying a fixer upper. Let's give people a full picture of what that would entail. I mean, I'll start really quick. Like, okay, it's the same kind of search, right? You're searching for properties. You're probably, if you're looking for, say, a 4-bedroom house in a specific area, I would actually probably limit the search to cap off before renovated home prices start, so that you're not seeing everything else and you're really narrowing in on what you want. So that's just a general search. And then we're going to go and see those places and we're going to check out the one that you want. And I would say still, if you're interested in this, you're going to go just as soon as you would if a house was listed and brand new and renovated. Because like you said,
Yeah.
there is competition among the subsection of people that are interested in this kind of project. So the speed that you might need to pull the trigger may not be any different at all between
Yeah.
buying a fixer upper
That's right.
versus buying a renovated home. So just keep that in mind. But let's just say that, somebody goes and we get them under contract and they buy it. I will talk about the financing later just because it's not as fun. But why don't you just start telling people kind of what the things that they need to consider and how it would really work after they close on the home?
So I like to bring up the non-technical components as well. So when you're walking into that fixer upper, you might have a really excellent imagination of the potential of what this house could be, but your partner or others in your household who will be embarking on this with you might not be that way. So you need to make sure that everyone is prepared for what this adventure will be. Um, because that can really harm your relationships if you're not all on the same page and all ready to make the concessions that are necessary when you go
Mm-hmm.
through that. The other thing I'd like to point out is we want to normalize normal living spaces because it's really easy to have grandiose visions of what the house can be. All houses have incredible potential. You can knock out walls galore, you can add additions galore, but really when you're looking at a fixer upper, for most people, you're going to be making modest changes to start and you can build in large additions in the future. So I think first normalizing that and then looking at what are the true wants versus needs and focusing on the skeletal and systems upgrades that need to happen first, because that's where the true value of your home comes in. We've all heard of like, this place has good bones. Well, that's where the money is. Everything else is superficial and can be changed out. So you need to know, is this a cosmetic improvement, a cosmetic fixer upper, or is there something really fundamental that has to be done? And I think that's also the key to watch for when you're looking at flips is, does it look pretty? Yes, but was it done well? How are these systems? How were they installed? What is the quality of the materials and the labor that went into it? When I'm talking about the renovation process being a little more complex, so we all know that it costs money. So we're like,
Mm-hmm.
oh yeah, I've got money to do this. We all know it takes time. So that time can start to grate on us when it starts to take longer than we expected. And that influences our relationships. It
Mm-hmm.
influences our tolerance and our stress levels and our
Our mental
sanity.
our mental health. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. And then you have decision fatigue because you have to pick the selections, everything that you want to have styled throughout the house. You might have a perfect idea for one room, but seeing the whole picture and how it comes cohesively together may be difficult. The mess that it makes can be challenging. Um, Permissions. So the permitting process can be frustrating, or do you have to slow it down a little and get an architect involved to do the drawings that are necessary if it's a little more complex? And then, of course, everybody knows, as we talked about in the past contract, there's the whole process of finding and vetting the right qualified contractor for your project that you also feel good about, because you have to have a working relationship with them. So there's a lot that goes into it. A lot of what I do in my coaching is not only that technical advisory, but helping others to manage the emotional component. And I think that's really the key to, do you want to do a fixer upper, is
Mm-hmm.
what kind of resiliency do you have and do the others in your home have to get through all of those moving parts, and for how long can you endure that?
Yeah, I mean something that you touched on now, which I think is really important, and that's different than buying renovated or let's just say ready to move in home that doesn't need much work. Is that you don't have to have a contractor, you don't have to have those people in place already necessarily, because you don't have to do anything. If you're buying a fixer upper and you truly like, I mean, let's just say your kitchen has appliances that are barely working, maybe not working at all, your radiators are busted, and so you're going to put in, baseboard heating. I mean, like, you're basically doing a decent to full renovation or whatever. You can't just go in la 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 and then hope that you find somebody afterwards. I mean, I find it hard to get my contractors sometimes available to do work for my clients, and I throw them business a lot, right, for the last decade. So if I'm having a tough time, then you're probably going to have a tough time as a buyer. Unless, of course, I mean, hopefully your agent can help you, right? Like I do try to fast track things for my clients, but that's assuming that they get along with the contractor the way I do, that my contractor
Yes.
teaches them or treats them the same in the same manner. I mean, I hope they do. I vetted them for, and like them for a reason, but still maybe someone's communication style with you is not the same as it is for me. Like somebody can be pretty matter of fact with me and blunt because I can be the same way and that's my business. But if you're not going to respond well to that, if you're not going to respond to somebody going, listen, I can't do that, or that's not something we do, as in our firm or something, then,
Yeah.
it's important that you iron this stuff out. You find the right person, you iron some of this stuff out ahead of time. And then when you find the right place, you're pulling the trigger and you guys are discussing that specific home and what you're going to do in that home together.
And that's a good point. There are sometimes individuals who, as they are shopping for the home, they already have a contractor who is a friend, or there's other experts. You bring your realtor along, you might have a friend who's a home inspector, you might have a friend who's in the construction industry, and you
Mm-hmm.
can bring them along, and they can also give you some realistic aha moments of,
Mm-hmm.
you might have a budget to be able to do this, but it's going to be so messy, so disruptive. You're not going to start off on the right foot with your neighbors. Is that something that you want to deal with.
Maybe this episode should be called "Why You Shouldn't Buy a Fixer Upper." No, no, no. We don't want.
No,
No,
I think,
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
and I think to that point, doing like for me, some people have hobbies, right? And I
Hmm.
have come to learn that a lot of my hobbies over time have become home maintenance, but not the stuff that I don't want to be doing. It's the fun projects that I want to try to tackle to make it look more exciting, or just to
Hmm.
give myself the confidence to say that I know how to do that. And I think that ties into part of the appeal for people who want to do a fixer upper, where they want to take pride in knowing that maybe they're not of the era anymore where we are building our homes from scratch like our grandfathers were doing,
Hmm.
but that they can say, I have done a lot of work to bring this home back to life.
Yeah. Okay, so let's just mention some other hiccups that could potentially happen so that people have their eyes open, a bullet point, if you will. So, one that I think people should consider is that prices will change of the work that you need done. So, I mean, if we go back to 2020, I think it was 2020, right? When the issue with like wood and lumber became like all of a sudden the price went up exponentially because shipments weren't getting in, global pandemic. And all of a sudden you're mid project and you need lumber and you need wood for a lot of projects. And people's
Mm-hmm.
prices were going up exponentially. And that sucks. That's the easiest way I can put it. When you lock in a loan for a renovated house, assuming you lock it in, you're not getting an arm, but even then you're locking it in for a specific period of time. You know what your payment is going to be, minus some small changes. Your taxes can change, your condo fee payment
Mm-hmm.
can change, etc. But you're locking in an amount that you are paying per month or that you're mandated or you have to pay per month, right? Like that's a given. If you don't pay your
Yeah.
mortgage, you lose your house. Um, so the price can change. So the question is, how much flexibility do you really have in your budget? Is something I would strongly want people to think about.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with your contractor. I have sadly had contractors bail on people kind of halfway through. Hopefully, when you're vetting your contractor and doing a lot of what you talk about in your class, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
you really hope that that's not going to happen. But I know a contractor, not somebody I use, but he had some major family stuff, a car accident, people passed away. You know, all of us have been there, and that impacted
Yeah.
his ability to really continue at all with the project. You can't there's uncontrolled things that can happen to the people working on your house just like they can happen to you. That's not
Mm-hmm.
something I'd fixate on, when I'm buying a fixer upper, but the point is like timeline and price can change. Yeah. I mean, you use any of the contractors that we provide or we have it that they'll no, just kidding. I was going to say that'll never happen, but that's not true. Well, I'm going to go into the financing unless you have any other kind of tidbits of things that people should be considering when they're buying. No?
I think one of the number one things is if you find your dream house where it feels really good and you want to fix it up, everything can be fixed.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is a fear that people have, and they think, well, that's overwhelming. That can never be done. Don't discount that something can be done. It just might have been that the other family or person looking to buy that home decided that they don't have the resilience or the time frame or the flexibility in their work schedule or the partnership that allows them the emotional commitment together to get through it. But if you have that, don't let other people's decisions in the past prevent you from buying and fixing up that home that's so appealing to you.
That is a great point to make. And I'll give two quick examples. One, recently I had clients who checked out a place that we thought it was just needed a new roof. I'm putting it in quotes because it was not just that. It needed a much bigger overhaul on the roof area, if you will. And we did a pre inspection. I think 9 people did pre inspections, meaning, 9 people are expecting to put in an offer without an inspection contingency. It's usually a pretty hot place. Um,
Yeah.
and they were considering it, I think, because of location, which is huge when you're buying a fixer upper, I'd say. Is like if it's in a really, really
Mhm.
good spot that you like, then that is a massive factor. Um, but, I don't know how many people ended up offering, but my clients didn't because they said, we've got 2 young kids. This is going to escalate. The price is going to escalate. And we just don't have the bandwidth to do this.
Yeah.
So if other people who were offering knew that my clients had bailed, it shouldn't affect them. I mean, if anything, if they're still in, it should help them be like, okay, we've got a better chance of winning it, right?
Right.
So, yeah, so I mean, don't pay attention to that. And the second one is going to get down to, we're actually going to start talk about financing. So it was a house in Eckington. This is like 6, 7 years ago. And for those people who don't know where Eckington is, it's right across from Bloomingdale, which is where I live, which if you don't know where that is, you're gonna have to look it up. But nice central area in DC. Basically, it's like literally at the crosses between between northeast and northwest, and it was a great row home. My clients lived there. A huge leak had happened, and they kind of patched it, but they weren't. I mean, it did not look nice. It needed a lot of work. There was exterior kind of wood rot and had a lot of issues. But the buyers were first-time home buyers, very interested in doing a fixer-upper. They were really excited about it. They may have had like a home renovation contractor person in the family, but I don't think it was like a father that close, right? But just they felt okay.
I'm lucky.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, my point is like, I don't think they were relying on like their dad's construction company or something to take care of it, but they had an interest and a knowledge. And they ended up buying this house. A lot of people were scared of buying this house. I mean, frankly, when I went into the house, I was like, oof, how are we going to market this? Because it had a lot of visual kind of issues. And they ended up buying it and using a construction loan. So real quick, we'll go into financing. And just so everybody knows, and sorry, Erin's just going to have to sit there and look pretty for this part because this is, this is not her realm. And frankly, it's really not mine either. I'm not a lender. But the thing is, like, if you are going to get a construction loan, the way a construction loan works is that you buy a house and you are slowly given money by the lender to do projects. And you have to, and they give it directly, I think, to the contractor doing the work. And you need to submit financials and plans and a timeline. And I remember as the listing agent seeing this stuff and being like, holy, I mean, you're already submitting a lot of paperwork for a loan, but you really need to go into this. And to our earlier point about needing your contractor set up, you've got to have that stuff done pretty quickly. And so you can't just
Correct.
find somebody afterwards. And anyway, so throughout the process, you've got an appraiser who's inspecting and assessing and making sure everything is done right. And then you get more funds. And after that loan is done, it gets a little complicated. It can convert to a normal kind of regular percentage loan, or it can also just automatically roll in, and depends. But the thing is, like, the rates are higher, as you might imagine, because they have to assume like what equity or what kind of collateral is the bank sitting on when they're loaning that money, when the collateral, the house, is in disrepair. We'll put it that way. And it needs issues. So your rates are higher. It's more complicated. And to your point about having the mental and like wherewithal to do it, that's definitely something you need to be prepared for, because 99 times out of 100, you're doing that work yourself. You have to be working with the contractor to supply that stuff. So there's that. And then, the option is you do a lower down payment mortgage. So, a lot of people think you have to have 20% mortgage or 20% to put down with a mortgage. You don't. You can do 10%. You can do 5%. Sometimes that makes sense because then you can use that cash that you would save to do the work. And in that case, you're not submitting anything to a bank, right? I mean, Erin, you've gone through enough renovations to know that they are challenging. Obviously, I'm not sure can you imagine having to supply all of that paperwork and get it down to a T?
I have guided clients through this process, and there are times where contractors who love the idea of the project won't go to contract with that homeowner because there is so much administrative paperwork, because there is this huge collaboration that needs to occur between the homeowner, the contractor, and the bank. And they're very explicit by bank on what the draw schedule is, what activities need to occur in order for the money to be released. So when you're talking about the job having to already had taken place, some component of it, in order to get the money, who's floating that money in advance? So there's this extra complication that goes in when you are doing it. But in many ways, it is the only way to make sure that in a fixer-upper, you are getting the biggest bang for your buck. You're really getting, but at the onset, the most renovation done that you possibly can do.
Right. And usually you're getting it all done. And so your equity in the house is immediately going to go up within X period of time, which is great, as opposed to kind of more slowly doing projects. But yeah, if you do like a lower down payment mortgage, then your timeline is not quite as, smashed together. And then therefore maybe your stress is not quite as high. You can take a break if you need to. And the other thing that I thought about, and I mentioned in our class the first class that we did, Renovators 101, is there are free credit advances that are available through credit cards, that might have a 0 interest rate for 18 months. And so, we talked about HELOCs, but that's for people who already have the home. And today we're just talking about buying a fixer-upper. But the credit card free advance thing is actually something strongly to consider, because you go to Home Depot, if they have some 18, and I'm not speaking like I actually know that they have this right now, but all these places like have these kinds of things, these kinds of offers, and you can get all of your appliances, and Home Depot has tile, lumber, all of the stuff, and you can do that for 18 months. And all that means is you're obviously deferring paying that money until 18 months, but maybe you can replenish your funds at that point. And you have a plan, you're going to be becoming partner or something, at the law firm, and you're going to be going up in what you make, then great. I think that's something that you should completely consider. I mean, 0%, it's free money, kind of. Anyway, so the only thing I will mention is that if you do want to get a normal loan, what people would call conventional, is you have to get an appraisal. And if there are major issues with the house, so visually structural issues, or all of your utilities don't work, so you don't have heat, air conditioning doesn't count because you don't need it, but you don't have running water. If you see, a retaining wall that looks like it's going to fall over in 5 seconds, your home won't actually be able to be underwritten for that loan. So that's when you truly would need a construction loan, or you'd have to pay cash. Yes. Yeah. I've seen, I haven't seen, I've heard of people like masking massive cracks in foundations and walls and slapping up, putty and stuff, which, I mean, whatever, I guess, if you're going to fix it as soon as you move in, but I can't advocate for that. Anyway, okay, well, we're at the end of our episode. Erin, I don't know if you have any final words to say to people. I mean, I truly didn't want people to think we're saying that they shouldn't buy a fixer-upper. I do think it's really wonderful if you want to do it, but
I think my final words are every home is a fixer-upper. I can't tell you how many people think that they're buying the perfect home, be it a brand new home that was just built or something that was just remodeled and they're buying it. Within 3 to 6 months, there's always something, some system breaks, some pipe bursts, something weird happens. And especially if you're a first-time homeowner, it's a little intimidating because you didn't realize that was going to occur.
Well, so welcome to owning a home.
I think if you go into it with the mindset of like, I'm the handy person now, everything will be a fixer-upper. I will have responsibilities to maintaining and improving this home. That makes it a little less scary when you look at something that needs a larger renovation. And I also think that when you walk into a place, try your best to differentiate between what is shiny and cosmetic versus what is the structure of the house. Like you were just mentioning cracks. So you want to look at how does the exterior and the interior of the home, in the walls, in the framing, in the systems, HVAC, really look, and pay attention to that with your inspector versus, do I like the kitchen? Does the bathroom tile appeal to me? Because all of that is something that between getting a renovation loan and taking your time to fix it up gradually over time, yourself or by hiring a handy person, it's worthwhile. But you will never escape having a fixer-upper.
Yeah, don't buy a house. Maybe this episode should be what why you shouldn't buy a house. I'm just kidding. No. It's all good. Okay, well, Erin, thank you for coming on again. I, as always, will link your information in the show notes. And for people who actually don't catch this episode before the last Renovators 101 class of the spring, they should go to your website and sign up for, to be on your email list, because the next one that comes around, they'll get some information about that. And, this might be good for people to know, even if they're not buying a fixer-upper, but they have a fixer-upper already, or, they want to sell a house, and it's a good class for them to pay attention to and join.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, of course. Okay, well, we'll see you later.
Buy the fixer-upper.
Bye.